Welcome everyone to our International Women's Day Fireside Chat with Beth Ford. I've been so looking forward to this conversation the last few weeks. I think we've pulled like the best guest ever for our IWD Day. And Beth, welcome. I mean, I've got your bio. I'm just going to read this for the team because it's so impressive. I mean, first of all, you're the CEO of Land of Lakes, which is a Fortune 200 company. It's coming up to 100 years old, so it's a really cool, exciting company. You've got a 35-year career, but it's not quite simple. I've been 30 years in Accenture. You've got 35 years, 6 industries, 7 companies. You've been at Land O'Lakes now, I think, since 2011, doing various roles, but ultimately, obviously, you're now the big boss, which is great. And then I also understand you're a very passionate advocate on behalf of the farmers, rural America, connecting people, particularly urban areas, to the farmers that you work with and who grow the food. And then your list of accolades, well, what can I say? Fortune as the world's 50 greatest leaders, world's most powerful women in 2020, I think for the 3rd year running, named Fast Company's most productive people, best leaders list, and lots of other honors. And then you've been on 60 Minutes. So what can I say? You're a TV star through and through. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, Beth. We're really thrilled to have you. We've got an amazing audience here. We will have all of our internal employees here in the Midwest. Many of our clients join this session. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining me and welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm a big fan of Accenture. I've worked with Accenture my entire career, multiple companies. And by the way, at one point, my younger brother worked for Accenture.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, that's just a little kernel of information.
Okay, I shall go and check him out in the HR systems and see how.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how he did. So don't paint me with that. No, he's great.
No, I obviously wouldn't do that. But yeah, I mean, the good thing about being in Accenture in the Midwest is there is lots of people who have worked for Accenture. I've realized I've been in the US 5 years, been here for 3 and a bit now, and I bump into lots of people that have been part of the Accenture family over the many years. So, but Beth, tell me, I mean, we're here virtually. You're in your home. I'm in my home. We've been doing this for a year, I guess, now coming up. We've all learned new things about ourselves, I think, and about our families and how to get on. You're a CEO, a mom. I've read that you deal with the politicians. What's your life hack that you've learned in the past 12 months just to survive this thing?
Well, first of all, yes, it has been. I mean, what is today? March 2nd? And I can remember actually my last visit was in DC. I was there for a meeting. And then was up on the hill, met with a couple of senators, and then was meeting with other people from the administration. And I was flying into Bentonville to give a speech at the Walmart thing. And I landed, and they said, no, the headquarters is shutting down. And so I got back on the plane and went back home. And so that feels like, I can't believe that's been a year. Yeah. So what's the life hack? What I recognized at first, it felt like, oh, wow, we're here. Isn't this kind of cool? We've kind of been working from home. What's going on with the connectivity? I have 3 kids, and what are we doing there at school? And then it got to be like, Tuesday is like Friday is like Thursday is like, I mean, there's a sameness. What I find the most important thing for me, if you say what is the hack to kind of move through there, 2 things from a business perspective, making sure that I put my employees first, their safety. My whole focus is on that. I do lunch with Beth, dinner with Beth, virtually. I do all sorts of, I'll film myself talking with them to just stay connected. And the team does a terrific job. Personally, I think one of the things I do literally is I dress for my day, similar to what you would do if I'm going out. And what am I doing today? I'm going to be, having this conversation with Accenture. I've got 2 or 3 other events I'm going to talk to today. And so I get up and I do the same thing I do on a normal day. I go down to my gym. Well, I have some coffee, feed the animals. Then I go down to my gym and I work out, come back up, dress for the day. And then I go throughout my day. And then at the end of the day, I change back in because my office is up near the master bedroom. And I go back in and I change. Now, because again, to me, there's an importance of I'm in my professional mode and I need to do that. Now, I'm going to tell you, there have been a couple times, literally I'm mid an event. I'm giving, it's live. And one of my boys crawls in their underwear, low crawls to try to get their technology, because we always make them put their technology in my office at night. And I'm like, I'm kind of busy here. What are you doing? So, whatever hack I have, I mean, you have to kind of give people a moment of grace and have a sense of humor, because you're seeing everybody in their home with their family. The cat jumps up, the dog's over here, and it can be distracting. But to me, it's been terrific because people see me as not Beth, the CEO, or at least they see me as Beth, the person who's got this family, who's got the same kind of crazy going on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That kind of humanizing. I've had my 12-year-old daughter dancing with me on video here and all sorts of stuff just to kind of crack it up. But I must admit, I don't get dressed up like this every day. I said to Rob, who you know very well, Rob Birdsong, I said, do I need to get dressed up? He said, I put a button down on, Lee. And I had to then, I'm like,
it's stretching yourself, Lee.
I'm like, when I had to ask him, what's a button down? We don't call these things button downs in England. We just call them a shirt. So it was kind of amusing banter for a while. But no, you're looking very smart there. And I didn't notice you dressed for me for the day. So thank you very much, Beth. We have something in common. My dad was a milkman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So back in the UK, when I grew up, you would, an electric cart would go around the houses and would deliver milk to every house had milk. So I grew up being the son of a milkman. My first job was a milkman. I believe you grew up doing corn detasseling for $2 an hour, and now you're the CEO. So how did you get from detasseling corn to sitting here as chief executive of this huge company?
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? Exactly.
Apart from your innate capabilities and wonderful personality.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot here, Lee. There's a lot. No, the reality is, it's so funny that you bring up Milkman, because I have 7 siblings. I'm number 5 of 8. And the Milkman used to come to our home, and he'd refill the refrigerator twice a week because, we were drinking a lot of milk. We had a big family. So how to get from here to here? Well, it wasn't linear. I probably... I've worked in 7 companies. This is the 7th, 6 industries. But I think there are a couple foundational issues that I think are threads in my career. I think the first 10 years of your career, you're trying to figure out who you are. Like, I'm a professional. And I'll be honest with you, most of the time I was like, where's the party? Can I afford to pay my rent? Right. Okay. And I was working for Mobil Oil, and I worked in Los Angeles and Boston and New York and DC, where the headquarters were. And so the first 10 years, I wasn't really being deliberate about my career, nor the aspiration. I don't know that I had an ambition like, I want to be the CEO. Instead, what I was doing was broadening myself in terms of functions that I was exposed to. I would take a lateral to get something. I was learning about the business. But one of the threads is I like people-intensive businesses. So I was in supply chain. I was in line operations. I managed tanker and barge docks, trucking facilities, had to tell one guy to bring his teeth to work. I mean, that's a job.
Seriously, like he would not wear them?
I was like, Tommy, you've got to bring your teeth to work, okay, man? I mean, for reals. So that's a great job, but I love those jobs. I wasn't uncomfortable. I was in line operations as a supervisor, as night shift foreman and everything. And I thought that was so great because those are messy, it's the mess of the human condition. You're seeing it right there. I've had, the gun pulled on me. I'm there in the middle. I mean, I can give you a million stories. And I loved those jobs because it taught me how to be an optimistic kind of leader, meaning to you're not a leader if you don't have followers, by the way, but it taught me that being consistent and respecting the work everybody's doing every day is important. So that's a thread throughout my career. It allowed me to move from industry to industry because I had that background in different functions. The other thing I found was the importance of meaningful work. So an Accenture thread here, actually, I was working with some partners from Accenture on a project when I worked for Pepsi. Okay. And it just so happened they also were doing some work at Scholastic. And mentioned that Scholastic was looking for a head of operations for global operations and the SVP role. And so it's how I figured out about the job. Now, what I loved about the Scholastic job, I ended up getting that, was it was about the importance of meaningful work. That's about literacy in children. literacy in children. So to me, when that was opportunity, I was like, well, if I can help with that mission, I really want to be involved.
That must have felt like almost as a kind of completely jump out of the.
Exactly.
You're going to jump into a completely different career at that point.
I was with Mobil Oil. Then I actually worked at a smaller company, Persico, in Chicago, that deals with the Happy Meal program and others for McDonald's. Okay. Did that for a brief period of time. Then went to Pepsi and was running their North American supply chain, their strategy group, things like that. And then went to Scholastic. And but I stayed at Scholastic for 7 or 8 years. And why? Because I liked the work, the importance of the work. It's also when I had my children, so there's a period of time. But then I went into, where did I go from there? Went to another publisher, Hachette, where I was their COO. And then I went into the chemicals industry, IFF. And that was about global businesses. I traveled everywhere. And then I got a call when I come to Land O'Lakes. Now, I wanted you to know when I first got that call, I said no.
Oh, interesting.
And the reason I was like, I'm in New York now. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from Iowa originally. This is Minnesota. It's cold there. I'm not interested. I'm not doing it.
It's definitely cold there. I can say that. Yeah.
Pardon me?
It's definitely cold there. I mean, my last flight. You mentioned your last flight. My last flight was to Minneapolis a year ago, and it was still cold then. So
I thought Chicago. I lived in Chicago. I thought Chicago was colder than Minnesota.
It's like balmy compared to Minneapolis.
No, stop it. Stuff coming out. You make that fake out move. You get the apartment near the lake, and then the wind's coming off it. It's not pleasant. I'm just going to tell you. Anyway, when I went to there, I said, well, I wasn't really going to be interested, but I thought, well, I should always explore it. But I flew in, and literally as I was landing, the recruiter, I said, I just want you to know, I'm not going to take this job, but I'll go in there for you. But there was something about the structure of the business, the cooperative model. We are still a cooperative. This is our 100th anniversary.
Yeah.
It's about feeding a growing world population, and more recently, since I took over as CEO, I've been focused on rural vibrancy, especially as I come from rural areas of the country. And so there was something again about the meaningful work. And as I left there, I thought, okay, this is an opportunity to really make an impact. I started as their chief supply chain officer. Then I started running businesses and functions in addition to that role. Took over as COO, and then this is my 3rd year as CEO. That's how I got from here to there. It wasn't linear. It was everywhere.
Amazingly, John, and you mentioned something there around a lateral move. I personally made a lateral move a few years ago, and it was the best thing I did, to broaden out the skill set. But at the time, you sort of feel like you're copping out a little bit. But we have 5 generations of people here in Accenture, from 20s to 60s, or I think we even have some 70s, so maybe 6 generations. And but a lot of the people are younger crowd coming from college, and I'm sure they look at you and they say, well, I could never be a CEO. When did you realize that you may be able to be a CEO?
It probably wasn't until my 40s.
Okay.
Now I made more deliberate moves in my 30s. So in my 20s, I was kind of, as I was figuring it out, it was kind of more about the parties and whatever. In my 30s, as different opportunities came in different businesses, I realized I needed to broaden out my exposure to different things. I went back, I got my master's in finance, because I knew I needed more of that background. And so as I started then I was in the C-suite when I was in 36, when I stepped into that role for Scholastic. Yeah. And I started to realize, well, you know what, actually, I do believe I could potentially be a CEO. I started to think that at the end of my 30s, beginning of my 40s. And that was the conversation I was having with different businesses as they interviewed me for roles. They talked to me about the potential for me to be a candidate for the CEO role. So I thought that was an opportunity. Now, what's interesting is that I left Scholastic, I went to Hachette. And that was, I was their COO. And so the question then was I going to be a candidate for the CEO role? And I left there pretty quickly, although I was a candidate. And folks said, why? And what I realized is that it wasn't the right place for me to be the CEO.
Okay. Yeah.
I thought I liked the job. I liked what they did. I was impressed with it. I'm not the right CEO for that. Because I think if you're in that industry, you love that industry. You know every book, you know every editor, you know every writer, and that just wasn't me.
Okay.
And so I shouldn't be the CEO there. I thought that's not my right place.
Yeah, you'd be faking it to some extent. I think if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you can't really lead it. It's so hard. It's hard work to lead something you're not passionate about, right? So, you know.
Exactly. And then I went to IFF and I was traveling everywhere around the world. And I liked that job quite a bit. But I thought that the opportunity at Land O'Lakes was there to really make a bigger impact. And so I've been pleased to be here.
No, it's interesting. When we're coaching some of our more junior staff, and they'll kind of try to map out their careers, and I'll say, just don't worry too much for a while. Just learn stuff, do stuff, experiment with stuff, and at some point it will come a bit clearer. But so it's interesting that you'd say the same. I guess you 15 or so years of career before you kind of worked it out. But I'm going to pivot now because this is International Women's Day. I'm going to talk about inclusion and diversity, equality, important topics. We do huge amounts for that. And I'm asked regularly when I'm doing media events, kind of, why does Accenture do this sort of thing? And I noticed, and my answer is always, it's about innovation and business results. And then I was looking at your earnings and I'm thinking, you did like 29% last year or something in growth in earnings. I'm like, I could do with some of that, So, what's your answer? What are you doing at Land O'Lakes for inclusion and diversity? And then, and why do you do it?
Well, first of all, I think a more diverse team has been proven to lead to more successful results.
Yeah.
So I do spend a lot of time talking about coming in, showing up as your authentic self. Now, obviously, there was a lot of interest in the fact that I was named CEO, because understand the board is at the time that I was named CEO, we were 28 men.
Were they?
Wow. Yeah, and it's all farmers or local retailers, and it's a cooperative model. So there's an intimacy. I know them because the farmers still 90 to 95% of farms are still family owned. So I know them and their family. I'm aligned to their mission. So everybody thought it was really startling to have me be named as CEO, and I'm a woman. I'm a gay woman.
That's it. Right? You don't fit the mold of 28 farmers. I must admit.
Exactly. Like, how did that happen? First meeting I went to DC, they're like, "How did you do that?" And I was like, "Well, to me, I respect them, and they know that. I will be their fiercest advocate to do the things that I think are right for them, for their business, for this enterprise." And, the diversity question, I think, is a really important one. In addition to the good earnings growth in my management team, my direct reports in the C-suite, we've increased female representation. It's now 49% female.
Oh, okay.
So we've increased diverse or ethnic diverse. I have 2 African Americans or Black leaders in the C-suite. And so that puts them at 17, 20% or something. Okay. So now so here I am, I'm like, God, that's great. We're killing it. Right. Yeah. We've got ERGs like everybody does, the employee resource groups. And I'm like, I'm killing it, man, on this diversity thing. And I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
And then I go to the meeting with the Black African-American ERG, and they're like, okay, pump the brake, Beth. I'm like, well, I feel like you're seeing the representation, the diversity. And they're like, yeah, look in between. And I think that's a moment that we all need to remind ourselves, what is the pipeline? Are we making sure we're positioning folks in their career as they move up the pipeline? And so it was really an important, honest conversation. So we've been focused on that. Now, we've always set kind of targets on not just retention, but also, from a hiring perspective, how many open positions do we have a year? What percentage of those are females, minorities, things like that. We're trying to make a deliberate, because that's a journey.
Yeah.
What you talked about is when you're telling people, hey, just don't worry so much about it. I say the same. I mean, go on life's journey. It's bumpy. Embrace the failures. Embrace the successes. It's a big, messy, and you should love all of it. Similarly, I try to be honest with our diverse hires and diverse employees that this is a journey, and I don't think we're where we need to be. I'm going to try to be as transparent as I can be. I will give you all sorts of information about our representation. I will be deliberate in my actions accordingly. But it's a journey, and so why is this a focus? I believe you bring your best work to work when you can be your authentic self, when you feel like you are in a safe environment. Yeah. Now, I'm going to add one thing on that, because we've seen this, especially in the Twin Cities. It's one thing to say you're safe here, and I think our employees feel that. It's another thing not to invest in your community.
Okay.
Because people live their life, you hire the whole person, their kids, where are they going to school? Do they feel safe in their home? Do they feel safe in their community?
Yeah.
And so we really put a premium on a community investment, and that is time and dollars, as best we can. We can't write some $100 million check, but what we can do is show up and try to make sure that the communities in which we're doing businesses have the appropriate investment.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been in this role now for a year and 2 days or something in this current role, and we operated on a national and global basis by industry before that, and now we have a more regional structure. So the good thing about as I'm learning in the first year, by having this regional structure, we can really make a difference in the local communities. And we have 10 big offices in the Midwest, and 10 states, and every one of them is connected into the local, whether it's the ERGs or the local boards, local charities, so they can really make a difference, which I think is a benefit of having that kind of geographical focus for us now that was harder in our prior model, and our employees, particularly our more junior employees, they insist on having that when they're applying for their jobs. If they don't see a company that is really helping, whether it's sustainability or the community, they're important topics. So I totally agree with that. You mentioned the pipeline. I think there's something that we struggle with, a lot. We set targets, as you do, but I'm constantly focused on, what's the next 3-year pipeline going to be to get to the top table, to sit with me, and when I've gone, somebody else. What are your tricks to kind of keep people, and not alienate other people if they think they're not in that pipeline? Have you got any? How do you operate?
No, I was going to ask you. Yeah. What do you do? I do say we have to have a deliberate conversation. There's a couple things. First of all, I would say making sure that the team that is with us, I believe, want to be with us because they believe in the mission of what we're doing. Now, so it is and I'm going to use that word deliberately, because it's bumpy out there. But we're about doing things that are important, our rural vibrancy. We have an NGO that works with smallholder farmers from USAID, funded by USAID or the Gates Foundation in Africa. We have, we're 70 to 80% of our employees are investing their time volunteering or in their money. And so when people stay with us, they are with us because they are aligned to our values and to our ethics and to what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, if you're at 70 to 80% engagement in that, you have to be best in class.
That's right. Actually, during this pandemic, our engagement scores for employees went up 18 points.
Really?
Because they saw that we were trying, we prioritized their health and safety. We're trying to stay as connected as we can. We're doing everything we possibly can to put them first. And I think that was a real learning for me, because I always thought, well, I put the employees first. The employees are, but we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe I wasn't as intimately connected to them. Now I'm sitting here in my home, or I'm there. I mean, I'm on every call. I'm in every meeting. I'm trying to stay much more connected, and I think that that's been a value. So back to your question, how about that pipeline? It's really important to have honest and transparent conversations with people and to stretch them. And I'm going to say this for women especially. Many times, women will take themselves out of play.
Yeah.
They take the decision. And if you decide to do that deliberately, rock on. Perfect. If you decide to do that because you had a failure, or you don't see how you can have a family and do all these other things in your life, because you haven't seen it, let me just say, I have 3 teenage children. One just went to college. I have twin boys that are left. I've had my spouse, my wife, has worked and has had a very successful career as well. And that's not because every day is smooth. It's bumpy. It's hard sometimes, but you figure it out if you're with the right person and if you want that in your life. And you can't use that to say that will mean I can't achieve. If you want to achieve, you can, I promise you. But part of that means that you have to enable other people's careers. It really isn't all about you when you're in this role, and I'm sure going to guess you're going to say the same thing. It's very little about you.
Yeah.
Very little about me. It's very much about the employees. And when you start and show up that way earlier in your career, and people recognize that you're not about your own success, but you're about enabling their success too, it's a virtuous circle.
Yeah.
And it brings everybody along. So
you mentioned something earlier about speaking up, and when you, in the context of kind of wanting the next role. I think, and I'm encouraging many of our women as they enter that kind of parenthood phase to speak up about what they need, particularly in this kind of COVID year that we've had, because when the kids are running around behind, I mean, not always in their boxer shorts, hiding under the camera. Sometimes the small ones kind of appear on camera, right? So, I think people have got to be much more upfront and ask what they really want, what they really need, and not be embarrassed and shy to ask for it, because actually we want to know that so that we can flex and adapt and not have that kind of opt out kind of default happen, which often by the time you realize it's too late. You can't do anything at that point because it's got too extreme. So trying to get our employees to speak up what they need and just adapt to this world. And I'm hoping that we can keep this kind of stuff, in the next phase of COVID, and keep that level of dialogue, because it's been so transformational in terms of how we engage with our people, I think,
I think that's so smart, because yes, I mean, I got asked that right away on one of the interviews I did after I was named CEO, like, did you ever say that you wanted to be CEO? And I said, I absolutely did. I told them I wanted to be the CEO.
I'm in there.
Yeah, right? Because, women in general, and I'm going to say this again, generalization, not everybody, but we kind of erase, like, they're going to see how great I am. I'm working so hard and I'm just high quality. Let me disabuse you of that notion, because that's not true. Men are not shy about that, asking what they want for what they want, and women should not be shy either. Now, I always say you got to be prepared for the answer.
Okay.
Because the reality is sometimes you say, I want that job. I believe I'm ready for this. And the answer is, we don't see you in that role. Okay. We don't see you right now. Now, you should see that as a gift. While the moment might seem hard and when you hear that, the reality is it's a gift, because then you get to ask the next question, why? Tell me what it is that I need to do to fill, to make sure that I can position myself. And that's a gift. Now, let's say that the answer is still no, we never see you that. That's still a gift, because you're not in your right place.
Yeah.
You're not in your right place. You have to know that. And so all of these are uncomfortable conversations, but the opportunity is to say, I'm going to ask for what I want. And then you're bringing up this, I think, such a crucial point, this day-to-day right now. I have one of my direct reports in the C-suite. She runs our dairy business. She went part-time. She did a job share for 6 years while her kids were younger. And now look at, she's come back in, she's doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
It's still, everything is still possible. It's a flexible work environment. And you have to be, really transparent about what you want.
Yeah, no, I think speaking up, I have a t-shirt actually that says "Show Up, Speak Up" that I wear on my town halls and stuff to kind of keep that going. And we're coming to the end of our time here, Beth, unfortunately, but I have got some friends to come and ask some questions of you.
Great.
So give me 1 second, I'll get my friends lined up, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
I'll look forward to it.
Hi, Beth. I'm Beyond, and I'm a lead business architect at Accenture. What additional advice would you have for women and men who aspire to achieve a C-level role?
Again, I think that you have to, what you would have heard today from any comment from me is that you need to allow yourself to go on life's journey. And that sounds like a kind of a big trite statement. It's not. I didn't have an expectation I was going to be the CEO. I didn't have that aspiration until I was much later into my career. And then realized I could do that, and I wanted to achieve that goal. So my advice is to make sure you're broad early on. It broadens the opportunities. Make sure you understand that might be laterals or moves to different areas. You have to engage and do that. Part of this responsibility is the business with whom you're working for, and at the same time, it's your responsibility. I'm a big believer to engage yourself, take advantage of whatever training, opportunities, things that are coming your way, and then be transparent. So you're going to have failures in your life. There are going to be bumps. I could list many, many failures, disasters, where I'm checking my checkbook, like, can I afford my rent? Because they're going to clearly escort me out the door here for this bad decision I made. But then you realize that is life's journey. And you recover, you say, yeah, I did, that's not something I'm going to do again. And I'm going to move on. And I'm not going to wear that like an anchor around my neck. That does not define me. Instead, I'm going to have confidence, as my mother tells me frequently, you didn't get stupid overnight. And so I think that's always good mom advice.
Yeah, that's good advice, definitely. Amanda, what's your question for Beth?
I have a great question for Beth. Hi, Beth. I'm Amanda. I'm a managing director within our interactive practice. And I'm so curious. I love the way you described your career, but how did you go about finding role models and mentors as you advanced in your career, especially as you navigated uncharted territory?
Well, your last comment is the right one. I mean, uncharted territory. When I was going through my career early days, there weren't a lot of females. I worked for Mobil Oil for about 10 years. I remember being at headquarters. Everybody, like the men could only wear like a white shirt or a blue shirt. They could wear like a red tie or a blue tie. They get up out of the cubicle. They have to put their jacket on to go to bed. And I'm wearing a structured suit, right? And there are no women as vice president. So when you're saying who is the mentor? Well, I'm going to say rather than mentors, I've had people who have been supporters and have taken an interest and make sure that my career was moved along. And I'm a big believer that you, no matter your level, should do the same for your peers. When you get a call, hey, Amanda, are you interested in this job? You're like, it's not right for me, but Joan would be great for that job. That's how you build a network. Networks are important. This is all about people. And the best career facilitation you can have is having a good network of people who are big believers in you, who are ones that advocate for you. But the point I've made before is it's less about mentors for me. I've had some people take interest in me, but the best facilitator, I believe, in my career was my mother and continues to be. And why? She just a plain spoken, again, that advice on ask for what you want came because I was 10 or 12 or whatever and having a little tantrum as I do. She's smaller than me at that point, even because I'm tall, 6 feet. She's like 5'2". And I remember I was like, I can't believe you didn't do that, blah, 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 because, at 12. And she was like, she looked at me and she said, do you think I'm a mind reader? If you want for something, you ask for it. And I can tell you, I can see where we were in the house. I can see her comment to me, and I thought, that's so smart. And so rather than looking elsewhere, I look right at who's the best role model for me. My mother's resilience, her continued investment in herself. She's got 8 children. She had me number 5 when she was going through nurses training, then went back and got her master's in psychology, became a therapist after when I was in 8th grade, and then became a minister. She said, I first invested in their bodies, then their minds, then their souls. So rather than that, she's just so solid. I admire her. And when I see stuff like that, I think I've got to achieve, I got to do better. And I can tell you many stories where I thought, she set her expectations high for those of us, as she said, who were given so much. Now, I want you to understand we were a working class, poor family. But she was always like, you have so much. You have to do more. Don't disappoint me. I was like, oh my goodness, I got to not disappoint.
I do think having people who are stretching you around you, whether it's your mother in your case, or a mentor, or whatever you call that individual that you spend the time talking to, who can really just kind of raises the bar on you and helps you believe that you can achieve something that maybe you're not currently doing today, when half the time they probably don't know whether you can either, right? They're just kind of able to inspire you that you can do that and achieve more. And that's really the best mentor to me, is the people that inspire you to do more than you probably thought you could do yourself, Yeah,
agreedly. That's a really good insight.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
Hi, Beth. My name is Ramona Durham, and I'm a T&L consultant at Accenture. So I know you mentioned that you've worked about 6 or 7 different professions throughout your lifetime, but if you were not a CEO at Land O'Lakes, what else would you be doing?
Well, I was joking around that I hope it was something that was legal. I wasn't in prison, and I was just doing good work. I've always thought there were two things. Do you know, when I first started at school in college, I thought I wanted to go into politics. I was like, I really want to be the governor of Iowa, right? That was like an ambition. And, interestingly, think back, because this is in the early 80s, I was like, I can't be the governor of Iowa anymore because I realized I was gay. So I was like, that's not going to happen. So I got to pivot, right? Although now, look at
there are a lot of LGBT. Yeah.
Right. So I didn't think that was possible. Then I realized, wait a minute, if I was going to do this, I was going to have to maybe get a law degree. And who's paying for school? I was paying for school. So I was like, okay, I got to get a job and change my major to a job that I can make money, because my mom's not taking me back because I got a car payment now, right? So I gotta figure this out. So one was a politician, but then I decided that wasn't a good idea, but I have that interest. The second, I always thought that I would have interest is being a teacher. And, I feel like in this role, I get to do a little of that. There's an element to it, right? Where I'm kind of conveying. So one of the things that's happened here during COVID is I do a call. I used to do it every day, but now I do it twice a week with my senior team, top 45. And what happens is, because our business is so broad, oftentimes function by function, or business by business, they are not aligned with or understand the variables in each business because they don't have exposure. But this has given everybody this opportunity, and I use it to educate others. I'll ask specific questions so that they understand, or I'm sending out, an article I read from The Economist or Financial Times or whatever. And so there's an element to teaching, I think, in this job that has really come to the fore during this crisis. I think you would see our team say they've never felt more aligned with, or never have they understood the business variables more clearly than now, because of that element of trying to make sure that in addition to I'm learning about what's going on with the business, I'm teaching as well, so that we can go back to your question earlier, Lee. How do you make sure that you've got the right pipeline, right? I need to make sure that pipeline is broad in their thinking and understanding of the business environment.
No, very interesting. My answer to that question is always I would be a professional road cyclist and I'd win the Tour de France. And then people look at me and they say, no, you wouldn't. So thank you very much.
I'm not going to be a gymnast. I'm 6 feet, so that's out.
No, definitely not. Thank you, Ramona, for your question.
Thanks, Ramona.
Thank you.
Hi, Beth. My name is Suzanne Randall, and I lead marketing and communications here in the Midwest. I have so enjoyed this conversation. I honestly don't want it to end. And I feel like I was living back in North Dakota. We'd be best friends, because you were just so awesome. And so
you guys, the North Dakotans are all high and mighty. Didn't really want to pay much attention to the Iowans, but okay. We can still be friends.
Exactly. Well, I have to just say, so in addition to my day job, I actually founded and I lead our Native American Employee Resource Group. I'm enrolled at Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa up in Belcourt, North Dakota. And on behalf of my tribe, I just want to thank you for your leadership. What you've done in Indian country has made a huge impact for us. And so we're grateful for you in many ways. And my question to you is, how do you think your Midwestern values and how you were raised, how do you think that has played into your leadership style and how you're teaching and leading others? Would just love a few nuggets of wisdom to kind of bring us home.
Well, the biggest, thank you for your kind comments. The biggest thing is the value of hard work. I mean, Lee, you started with you started making $2 an hour as corn detasseler, right? I always say, well, they're like, you shared a room with your 3 sisters. Yes, I got one drawer, and they're like, why one drawer? And I was like, because I needed a place to put my hand-me-downs. Let's just be real. So, there's a value of hard work, and I admire it. I admire our members because of the value of hard work that they do every day. And so that Midwestern feel, I think, is everybody understands when I say detasseling corn, they get it. They know what that was, or walking the beans, or, and so there's a value to that. And how do I think that that's played? Well, I think that everybody admires people who work hard and who don't get too full of themselves. I don't have any worry about getting too full of myself. When folks are like, what was it like when you were named CEO? I said, well, what happened was I was in Denver and they were like, congratulations, Beth. We wanted to make you CEO. Now, I had just gone through, they were asking me all sorts of questions. You go through an extensive process. You have to take testing, everything. I mean, this is not a like, hey, Beth's in the company, let's make her CEO, right? I mean, there's real work to be done. And I finish, and they were like, well, do you want to have a plane come in? I was like, no, I'm at the airport. I'll just jump on a plane, right? So it's just me. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I've done a couple of interviews. I guess I'll go have a beer. So I went and had a beer. And then I jump on the plane. I get home. Nobody's home. No, there's nobody home. So it's me and the cat. Not even the dog was home. And so I'm like, I'm having to have the cat check out my outfit because the next morning they're going to announce this thing. And that's real. So everybody's like, well, what was it like? I said, well, my kids came home and they're like, hey, good job, Mom. That was it. So I say this to say, this values. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful because I don't think it has much to do with me as much as the team that I have. I'm so proud of them. They delivered phenomenal results this last year, bumpy environment. It was tough. It was difficult, and they were gritty. And that's why I think of Midwest, were gritty people, and they delivered the goods. And I could not be prouder of my team. And I think that comes from a recognition of how hard that work was and how authentic they were and engaged in doing the right thing.
Yeah, thank you, Suze, for the question. I love the Midwest rivalry as well, by the way. The level of rivalry between the states of the Midwest, I think it surpasses anything else there is going. Beth, thank you for your time. It's been an awesome discussion on this International Women's Day. I have one last question for you. I believe you've named the cow behind you in your. Tell me the story. This is a
big moment because I've done so many events and everybody's like, what's the cow? What's the name? I was like, I should name the cow. So we did our town hall with employees, and we had a naming contest. My head of communications, Kim Olson, was like, you should have a naming contest. Like, brilliant. So we had, I think, like 600 names. The name that won, because then we narrowed it down, and then we had folks vote. We had over 1,000 votes, and in the end, the name that was selected, and this is clever, is Buttercup. Did you get it?
Yeah.
Get it? Land O'Lakes, huh?
Okay.
Buttercup?
Yeah.
Clever.
And the prize? Did someone get prize?
Well, the prize was, she's like, well, the prize can be they can have lunch or breakfast with you. And I was like, that is not a gift. Nobody wants to have, I mean, my own kids won't eat with me. Are you kidding me? So instead, we're going to have them go down to our Terrain Animal Nutrition, our farm down in Missouri. And that's just a terrific place to visit. So entertaining. So I think that one person during the town hall said, Beth, I would have lunch with you if I win. I was like, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll have lunch with you any day, but I'd prefer, if I'm honest, to go to the farm as well to see what really goes on.
We'll do it both ends.
Oh, both. Yeah. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to the 4 people that joined us with the questions as well, and to the many, many employees and clients that have joined us on this session. A great discussion. You're an awesome, awesome leader, Beth. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time. Appreciate everything you're doing for your company, for your family, and for your communities. I think it's a really awesome story. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for joining.